Oh boy, so the rumours are true. Toyota is coming back to Formula One. But then again, we over here at The Ladder believed that back in July, but now mainstream believes it too. And all of this is just simply undermining Gunther Steiner's tenure of Haas even more. Right before I go and see his live show tomorrow, I hope to see you there at Drury Lane. So yes, the rumours back in the summer from Formula.hu in regards to the collaboration between Toyota and Haas have turned out to be true. They're locked in. The two entities have become technical partners with one another. Now, there are many things that make this interesting. I mean, for starters, it now makes Haas look like a legitimate Formula One team for the first time, since 2018 or something like that. That in of itself is crazy. But no, this is not one-way traffic, my friend. They are learning from one another. And I will tell you all about why I think this is a really huge deal and why it may step on the toes of Ferrari, even though they've initially given it their blessing. And hey, do you want to know something funny? It has something to do with the timing of this all. Gunther Steiner releases his book Unfiltered, and then the next day, Haas announces its technical partnership with Toyota. Oh, the timing is so shady. But yeah, I reckon that this news was a pointed barb toward their former team principal, not even a year after he was removed from his leadership role. However, this news is even spicier than the rumours suggested, because this isn't something that's happening in 2025 or anything, no. This deal begins right now, effective immediately. In 2024, in Austin, a year effectively to the day where Haas had its biggest embarrassment since Uralkali and Nikita Mazepin were a thing. You know, you remember the whole thing where they were touting this to be their ultimate upgrade, that this would turn things around, that this would get them off the bottom of the constructors' table, and then the upgrade didn't work. Nico Hülkenberg didn't even run it for the rest of the season, and I reckon that was the death knell of Gunther Steiner at that team. Yes, and now, 12 months on, they announced this partnership with Toyota. It's the complete opposite. This is a tour de force. This is the biggest W I think the team has ever had. This is an absolute coup, and it really is showing us more and more about what Gene Haas and Ayo Komatsu have in store for us all. They are effectively opening the kimono a little bit as to the future of this team and where it could go, and maybe in the next few years, if they choose to stick around, it could be a works operation with Toyota. But let's not get crazy here. This is still a softly approach from Toyota. But in any case, you're curious to know exactly what entails from this current situation and affairs, and I'll tell you all about it from their press statement. Ahem. MoneyGram Haas F1 team and Toyota Gazoo Racing, the motorsport competition, research and development division of Japanese automotive manufacturer Toyota Motor Corporation, confirmed today a new and dynamic collaborative relationship with Toyota Gazoo Racing, now the official technical partner to the only American team competing in the FIA Formula World One Championship. Yeah, sticking it to Andretti there, are we, Gene? Under the new multi-year agreement, both parties will share expertise and knowledge as well as resources, with Toyota Gazoo Racing providing design, technical and manufacturing services, whilst MoneyGram Haas F1 team will offer technical expertise and commercial benefits in return. With an objective to advance MoneyGram Haas F1 team's development and competitive element within Formula One, Toyota Gazoo Racing will further develop its own knowledge and skills in a variety of areas through its involvement with the team, competing at the leading edge of global motorsport. Now, you're probably still a little bit puzzled about some of this, aren't you? Like, what does Gazoo even mean? I mean, it's more than just a delightful word to roll off your tongue, Gazoo, but it does have meaning. It's more like a portmanteau. That's basically mashing up a couple of words together, isn't it? Of the word gazo, the Japanese for image, and gareji, the word for garage. The idea of engineers in their garage looking at images of cars and whatnot, gaining insight and inspiration in regards to motorsport. Cool! Also, it's just really fun to say. Gazoo! Which is like a rallying cry, which is something they also do, rallying. Now, this isn't going to be akin to the disappointing situation Toyota found itself in back when they were in F1 last time as a full-on team, no. The Gazoo operation has learnt a lot since then, and effectively was birthed in the dying embers of the F1 team's operation, and once it halted, they took over managing of the Cologne facilities, and it helps a lot that the president of Toyota currently was one of the masterminds of the project, and when he became the president, he just took a look at his old skunkworks operation and went, I'm going to give it more money because I like it. And it's gone from there. And also, he's quite the petrol head, because he's even dabbled in a little bit of endurance racing. He helped developed the Lexus LFA, which apparently is Jeremy Clarkson's favourite car, or one of them, and it's a V10 beast of a Lexus, so that's crazy. And you might call him a Nepo baby since he is the grandson of the original founder of Toyota, but he does have petrol running through his veins. He has taken part in Le Mans a couple of times, and he likes racing, so he has that authentic connection, which was one of the issues that Toyota had when they came into F1 in the 2000s. They didn't have a real connection to Formula 1, nor did they really want to establish a connection within Formula 1, save for maybe hiring a few people and designing a car which looked like an F1 car. Back then, it was all about the company barging their way in, throwing money at things, and expecting the world of F1 to accept the Toyota way, and that if people worked in rally and other disciplines of motorsport, that would translate faultlessly into F1. It didn't. And then some poor decisions regarding the V8 transition, and the switch to Bridgestone from Michelin by order of the corporate HQ, scuppered any hopes of them improving on 2005, which was arguably one of their best seasons in F1. That's a very brief summary of why they didn't do so well in the sport than they would have hoped. So what does this mean for Haas? Is this just some sort of shaking hands thing and Toyota wanting to make a few bucks out of Haas and Formula 1 being really, really popular at the moment? Well, I mean, obviously, they're being a sponsor, their name's on the car, but they are also offering a lot of things in return, and for Haas, it means a lot of things. In terms of their overall structure and the way the team is actually operating, this is the biggest change since they became a thing in 2016. The basic principles of the team have not really changed since then in nearly a decade, when customer operations and facilities were de rigueur. But obviously that's had to change, and they've not really adapted. I mean, at least until now, where they're effectively just taking off. They're going at rocket speed. Who knows, by this time next year, Haas may be completely unrecognisable to the team that Gunther Steiner developed, and may finally be able to be seen as a team with no complications, baggage, drama, or any ridiculous stories attached to it. In fact, this year it was so close to being a drama-free season at Haas. That is until Urakalai showed up at the door like an angry ex and was going, "Give me money!" And then, of course, their stuff got impounded at Zandvoort. That was quite embarrassing, and Ayo Komatsu and Jean dragging that out for as long as it was, that was a little bit unprofessional. But hey, it worked out, and now it's all done and dusted. They've got their money, Urakalai. They can go and saunter off into the sunset. I don't care what they do. But the fact is now, Haas are now in the clear. They can now partner up with Toyota, a perfectly legitimate car maker, one of the biggest out there, if not the biggest in the world. And it's now really telling us that Ayo Komatsu is not just some temporary caretaker manager until a high-profile name can come around and start to give them some sort of kudos. No, that phase of Formula 1 is gone, because we are seeing more and more these days. Instead of having big, high-profile, loud personalities, such as Toto and Christian, we are now seeing more engineers stepping up to the plate and becoming technical managers and bosses. Mike Crack over at Aston Martin, he has a funny name, but he has a lot of engineering chops on him. Ayo Komatsu is the exact same thing, and this whole deal that Ayo is able to pull out just makes me want to scream to the world, "Hey yo, that's great!" So the decision of Jean to hire from within has turned out to be the most sensible and fruitful decisions of the team's history, and to secure the services of Toyota of entities, it's a masterstroke, especially considering how successful and serious their respective divisions have become, and the good work that Kamui Kobayashi and Kazuki Nakajima have done in bolstering that credibility of Gazoo racing even further. And let's not forget, I'm pretty sure that Fernando Alonso is quite happy with this arrangement, considering how Toyota Gazoo Racing helped him in his little wilderness period between McLaren and Alpine. He was able to dabble in a bit of endurance racing and desert rallying. Quite honestly, Fernando is probably one of the only F1 drivers out there who'll look at a completely different motorsport and go, yeah, sure, why not? Just give it a go. But wait, I hear you say, what about Ferrari? Isn't this going to be putting their nose out of joint or something? Because they're technical partners with Haas as well. They provide power units. How is there not going to be some sort of conflict or overlap here? Well, apparently Fred Vasseur was involved in the negotiations, and I've got some theories about where this could go. According to Haas, nothing is changing with Ferrari as of now, and the present agreement will remain as it is, and that the Toyota influence will not affect Ferrari's work in any way whatsoever. At least for the time being. In my own personal opinion, I feel like all of the rumours that were implying that this news would break a few months ago are actually ringing true, that this is a initial foray for Toyota into Formula 1 and then they'll see where it goes, and that Ferrari will remain the power unit suppliers for Haas. In fact, actually, it's kind of under debate because again, this relationship is starting now in time for Austin and will remain for the rest of the season. So they've actually managed to advance talks even more to just go, yeah, screw it, let's just do it right now. Their branding will be on the wing mirrors, the rear wing, and the nose cone, and those placements do not come cheap. Having those decals on the car are serious credentials, and to have such partners giving them access to more facilities and maybe free reign of the Cologne wind tunnel right when Andretti are promising a full chassis for 2026 at the end of this year, as well as office space on top of the shed that Haas has at Maranello, that means that Haas is sitting pretty in terms of access to stuff. This will probably mean that in the not too distant future, Haas will be able to make everything by themselves with, of course, Toyota's assistance, and their reliance on Dallara, something that was established by Gunther Steiner because he, to be fair, was able to get Haas up and running within 18 months, which is a huge coup for any brand new Formula One team, and actually score points and be competent, not dead last. Haas weren't dead last, by the way, in their first season. That was a big deal, but maybe the time for Dallara has passed, and maybe this might be a step for Haas to become more self-reliant. And maybe, because in the next Concord agreement, the cost cap might be raised up to $220 million, Toyota might provide a little bit more capital. And maybe Haas might be richer in terms of monies and funds and sponsors to be able to afford that quite easily and be able to keep up with the rest of the midfield, such as Williams and Alpine maybe, and Audi, and then of course VCarb, who are getting big-name blue-chip sponsors. So right now, I think everything will be absolutely fine, that Toyota and Ferrari can cooperate to some extent, but I would not be surprised that in the background, behind the scenes in the next couple of seasons, especially as we go to a new regulation cycle, we might see some treading of toes and conflicting messages, maybe some breakdowns in communication, and maybe Ferrari getting a little bit insecure as to what Toyota is getting involved with regarding with Haas. Because if Haas gets access to Cologne, which is a really storied wind tunnel facility for Formula One over the last 10 to 15 years, they already have Haas access to the wind tunnel at Maranello, which is state-of-the-art, and Ferrari has access to it, the Scuderia. That is a big deal. Haas might be able to get information from two wind tunnels and be able to correlate things. Their correlation data might be some of the strongest in the entire sport. So I'm pretty sure that Ferrari might not take too kindly to that. And not to mention, in the not too distant future, if Toyota and Haas continue to grow closer and closer and closer to the possibility that they might actually become a full works operation, which is something that they've not written out entirely, Ferrari might get a little bit shaky because it might end up in the not too distant future having no customers at all. A similar situation to what Renault ended up with just a few years ago, having no customers whatsoever, no revenue, no extra R&D from other teams because they've got people working at those teams to be engine developers. And Ferrari might end up being Billy No Mates for the first time in maybe, I don't know, like 3 decades or something, because let's not forget, Sauber and Ferrari have been long-term partners since the mid-1990s, and even though Sauber are sort of a bit of a shadow of its former self, and they are becoming Audi, so that's one team down. Haas has now effectively become their B team, but if Toyota starts to actually get closer and closer to them, and then maybe pitches the idea of becoming a power unit supplier as well by the end of this decade or the start of the next one, then Ferrari might lose an important revenue stream as well as technical information. Because if you seriously think that nothing will change and this will simply be just a technical relationship, but a little bit of a mutual one, you are sorely mistaken. Those rumours, I think they will actually have some legs. Like Formula.hu suggested in the summer, Toyota is tempted to get back into F1 considering how popular it is and how much money there is to be had, even more so than in 2002 when they first joined. But Toyota understandably will not want to go all in like it did last time, pouring in money willy-nilly and just going in blindly, because Haas is providing them stuff in return, in regards to manufacturing knowledge and nous and expertise within Formula One, as well as providing some expertise in terms of management and crew. And Haas is getting a lot of stuff in return from experiences that Toyota have had in rallying, world endurance, what have you, so everyone gets to actually benefit from it. Of course, this could easily go another way, and Toyota might partner up with Haas for a few years and then decide, you know what, we're just going to go it alone and start our own team, and then Haas might be left completely in high water. But if that does happen and Toyota goes it alone, they can just go back to Ferrari and say, Ferrari, Toyota kicked us out, and Ferrari will just go, there, it's okay. Well, I mean, it's Fred. He will go, yo, it is okay, don't worry, we can bring you in, and everything is fine. Also, I don't think Toyota would want to plow in loads of money to become a power unit supplier next year, because this is the last year of the current rules, and then next year it's too late for that to be even worth it, I don't think we will see Toyota become a power unit supplier until at least 2030. Some people in my mentions and replies and whatnot are saying 2031 Toyota might come in, which might make sense. Because according to Stefano Domenicali, that is when potentially there might be a brand new set of regulations for engines and the way it delivers power. We might actually see going back to a more simpler situation. We might just see simple combustion engines attached to synthetic and e-fuels if it turns out to be actually prudent and cost effective and environmentally sound. Because let's remember, F1 wants to be net zero by 2030. Only then, if Toyota and Haas are still working together, would Haas become a sole operation, or maybe Toyota might simply buy them out. That being said, I can imagine that the involvement Toyota has with Haas would continue to grow over the years. It won't stand still, and it might even start to impact on potential future drivers, with Toyota having a fair few young drivers on their books, which includes F2's Ritomo Miyata, who was the 2023 Super Formula champion. He might get a couple of FP1 sessions in the not-too-distant future, and he might even become their reserve driver. Sorry, Pietro, you've had a long, good stint at Haas, but I think it might be time to put you out to pasture. And like I said, maybe Toyota might want to bring on some more of their drivers. They might want to start to influence the actual lineup once Esteban Ocon's contract and Oliver Behrman's contracts run out. In case Lewis Hamilton retires in 2027, if Behrman has impressed at Haas, Ferrari might give him the call-up or something like that, because they will still technically in 2028 be partners. And let's not forget, Behrman is there at Haas because of the connection Ferrari and Haas have. But I do seriously think that Esteban is probably smiling like a Cheshire cat right now. I thought that Pierre Gasly had won the battle over Alpine, having the better deal, but you know what? I think Esteban might have had the last laugh out of all of this, because having this huge technical partnership with Toyota, which is probably one of the biggest we've seen in a long time, and has probably saved the long-term future of Haas, probably more solidly than anything that has ever been done at that team in its entire history, Pierre's probably looking at that and just going... And I know that people might reckon that Ocon will be a liability at this transformed team, but I personally disagree. This could be the deal that re-energizes the Frenchman into a team player. We might see him more chill than ever. He will be the de facto team leader, the veteran, and given that Alpine were not listening to his concerns for many years, having a team boss that will actually listen to him for once could be a huge boost for his morale, and he might be just completely cohesive with the entire team. I am really curious to see where Haas goes, and I think the goodwill towards this team is only going to increase more and more and more, especially since Andretti have completely dissolved because Michael Andretti is no longer involved with the Andretti Global operation, because the boss of Liberty Media has made it clear that he will not be stepping foot into a Formula One, so maybe the last chance for Andretti is for Michael Andretti to not be involved at all, so that means whoever's left in charge can then take over, or maybe Cadillac might be coming in as a team on their own without Andretti's involvement, or maybe just a token one. Haas are just making this really clear. As they said in their statement, they are the only American F1 team, and they will continue to be the only American F1 team because they survived the Roni Rona, they did the time. Yeah, now actually, with Haas improving and maybe having a chance at 6th place in the Constructors, maybe Americans might start to come on board more with Haas. Let me know in the comments if you're an American fan of Formula One and you're actually quite happy with what Haas is doing, and you might actually start to support them a little more because they're an American team. But wait, I hear you say, Toyota is a Japanese automaker. Well, considering how popular Toyota is in America in terms of its pickup trucks and other vehicles, I don't really think it makes much of a difference. I reckon that Americans will be happy with Toyota. It's good enough. Not to mention, the team's looking really, really good to maybe get a scalp on Red Bull, beating their sister team. And maybe their upgrades might continue to improve, or Liam Lawson might fail to deliver the promise that many people expect from him. But one thing is for sure though, the Haas of old is dead. This is not a team who is making deals with shady sponsors and relying on profanities to remain relevant. This is a team that has managed to rebrand itself in record time. The work that Nico Hülkenberg has done to help turn things around in 2023 and this year has been remarkable. The golden sunset of Hülkenberg has now been a sight to see, and Haas has actually had some part in it. And I bet you that out there on a podcast that Gunther is on, because he's apparently on every podcast under the sun right now, he will be saying in some shape or form, yes, I had something to do with Nico. It's because of me. I was able to put him in the car. If it weren't for me putting Nico in the car, Haas would be even more trouble right now. But we've now had our eyes opened. We thought Haas was completely and utterly incompetent around Christmas time last year, that they were no hopers. But no, we just had to get rid of Steiner, Komatsu come in, and he could unveil to us all that behind the scenes, behind all of the Vankers and the rock stars and the door smashing, there's actually a competent team there. And it's actually quite an efficient one, and it's now managed to get the backing of one of the biggest automakers on the planet. That is a deal that I think would make a lot of other F1 teams quite envious. And once again, all together now, in celebration for this deal coming through, Ayo! And I reckon that a deal might come around in the not too distant future will be Max Verstappen perhaps looking to leave Red Bull, because his fate now might be painfully obvious, what with the options that Aston Martin could afford him outside of Formula 1 should he choose to leave. To find out why I think Max has a good opportunity outside of Milton Keynes and why I think his fate is certain, go and watch this video next. But anyway, well done, Haas, well done.